What's up, guys? The Brazilian brothers, and look who we've got here. It is the legend Kevin Langeree pulling up on the Reedin Mobile. We are stoked to be here in Cape Town with this absolute legend. Let's go. Here he is. Nice to meet you, bro. How's it going?
You good?
Yes, I'm so good.
Ready for some action?
We're ready to go. It is already blown out there, huh?
Got some magic in the back, look.
Let's go.
Oh! I was flying out of the car, dude. Got a MasterModel for you.
MasterModel? What size?
Got an 8.
Okay.
I think you can handle that today.
I think I can handle that. You know, 30 knots in Cape Town with a meter waves.
Exactly.
This is the weapon to have, right?
Weapon of choice for me.
And you've got a towel for me too?
Yeah, I got a towel for you too. Like, in case you get out of the water, got your Elsa towel. Just in case. It's a little present for you.
This is nice? Right up my alley too, the unicorn. Hell yeah, now I'm ready to go.
You're gonna be up with the unicorn and up with the MasterModel.
Let's go, don't catch a cold, folks. What's up, guys? It's the Brazilian brothers with Matt Kiteboarding, reporting from Kite Beach here in Cape Town with the legend Kevin Langeree from Reedin Kites. It is an honor to sit down with this guy after watching his videos on the internet and see all his accomplishments throughout the year. We're here to sit down with him and ask him some very important questions, not only about his career, but also about Reedin Kites, Brainchild, and the state of big air in the world right now. The first question I wanted to ask you, Kevin, is looking back into your career. You've had a very successful career, both in freestyle as well as big air. I wanted to ask you, like, what are you most proud of so far in what you've accomplished?
Oh, that's quite a big question, dude. If I look back, you know, I started kiting back in 2000. I started competing in 2002. I won my first ever big competition in 2003. We're in 2026 now, so it's quite a few years ago. But I think one of the things I'm the most proud of is definitely becoming freestyle world champion. You know, I've been fighting for it for years and years and years, and then eventually I managed to win in 2009. And then, of course, you know, winning the King of the Air 3 times. It's the biggest kiteboarding event in the world, and being able to stand on that #1 spot was just, you know, I'm never gonna forget that for the rest of my life. So yeah, it's been quite a ride.
That is awesome. And actually, this is amazing because one of the things I think you've done was to revolutionize the world of kiting, because you were sort of the first guy who had the ability to have the vision of actually using a higher aspect kite with bridles at King of the Air, right?
Yep.
Before you, guys were using boots and a C-shaped kite, which for me never made any sense. What was the motivation? What's the story behind taking on a higher aspect kite when nobody else was doing it?
Well, it's kind of a cool story because, yeah, we were all riding sea kites. You know, we had the sea kites coming from freestyle, and we were like, you know, we knew the feeling of sea kites. So we're like, oh, let's ride them, you know, at big air competitions as well. And it did work really well. But the tricks were going so fast, and I lost in 2015. I became second. 2013 I became third. 2016 I became third. 2017 I broke my ankle. And when I broke my ankle, I was like, okay, I've been working on all these new tricks, but maybe I should look at my gear too. And Damien had been telling me it, like, dude, go on a bridal kite, man. It's gonna change. But I was, you know, competing, and I was like, no, this is what works. And then that season before 2018, when I won the King of the Air, I was in Tarifa, and I only brought a 9 and a 10. And it was like crazy windy. So I went to borrow a bridal kite, and I was riding it at Balneario, which then no one really rode. It's very different now. And I was riding it, and I felt actually pretty comfortable in those kind of conditions. And that was definitely a turning point for me, where I was like, hey, wait a minute, you know, maybe, yes, I should come up with new tricks, but I should also make a step in using different equipment. So for the 2018 season, I was like, you know, I'm going to spend the time, ride it on bridal kites, and it paid off. And that was a big turning point. You know, I was the first one riding a bridal kite. and then winning it. And then the next year you saw everybody change. They were like, oh, you know, those sea kites, we're going on bridal kites now. And I think that was a big turning point.
That's awesome. And it's interesting that you then use all that experience that you've had, not just with C-shaped kites, but also with the bridal kites, to actually create your own company and start designing your own products in collaboration with Damien. And I wanted to ask you, what was the motivation behind sort of starting Reedin? Because it is a reasonably new brand, right? But it is 6 years, but it's very successful. There's a ton of Reedin Kites in the water, which I think is awesome. So what was the motivation behind creating it initially? What was the missing piece that you saw in the industry, and how did you guys seek to achieve filling it?
Well, the main motivation was we wanted to make gear that we believed in and we wanted to ride. And at the same time, you know, I like to challenge myself. And, you know, I did that throughout my whole competing career. And I was like, you know, what's going to be that big next step? It's going to be starting a business. And Damien was kind of in that same, you know, time frame in his life where he was like, yeah, I did all this work already, all this experience. Now it's time to do something for myself. And that's when we started. We worked together already for very long, but then we were like, okay, we used to do it for a different company, you know, but I think we can do it for ourselves. And that was a huge motivation for us. And Damien went, you know, in his design room and started developing the first SuperModel. And the goal with the SuperModel was we wanted to make a do-it-all kite, a 3-strap do-it-all kite. Because, you know, I don't only jump here. I want to wave ride. I want to foil. I want to, you know, have fun underwater. And I remember that was the goal when we started. And I remember flying the first prototype like a couple kilometers down the beach here. It was a blank kite. And I remember putting tension on the lines. And right away I knew it, like, we are onto something here. Flew it, had a session. Damien was in Hawaii, it was in the middle of the night. I left him a voice note just being like, dude, you nailed it here, dude. This is the kite I want to ride, you know? And so right away from the start, with having Damien's experience, we had a great product right away. And I think that was also a huge part of the success of our brand.
I couldn't agree more. When you think about the SuperModel and you think about the kites that have come out of Reedin ever since the first launch, what should people be thinking about the main aspects? What are some of the main characteristics that you're trying to accomplish? I mean, you talked about versatility, right? Yeah. Which is a very important thing. But what are some of the other aspects that people should be thinking when they are looking at the Reedin brand and considering some of the kites and some of the products that you have?
I think one of the main things for us is of course performance, but also simplicity. Like if you look at some of the other brands, they do all these different kites for different disciplines. We truly believe if you have a good kite, it works for every sort of discipline. That's why we started with the SuperModel, right? But as a brand, we're growing now, so we're also making some different kites. You know, we're making the WhisperModel, which is a light wind kite. We're making a 13, a 15, and a 17, and it is just mind-blowing in how little of a wind you can ride that thing. And we were also, okay, we have the SuperModel, but we also want a 3-strut high-performance kite, you know? More precise steering, still the same characteristics as in a SuperModel. And we're calling it the HyperModel, which we've launched a couple years ago already. And now the newest one we made, because we were still missing a 5-strut in the line. And we made the MasterModel, which we just launched a couple months ago. And we're getting a crazy amount of good responses. You guys flew it in Brazil. And, you know, when I watched your review, I was like, yeah, you know, it's a good feeling. We put so much time and effort into, before we even think about launching a new product, there has been so much work before we even get started. You know, we don't want to just make a kite to make a kite. If we make something, we make it, you know, as good as we can possibly make it. And I think that really makes a huge difference between Reedin and some of the other brands. Like some of the other brands just make kites to make kites, you know, and it doesn't really fit in the line. And, maybe one type of their kites sells well. And I think with our knowledge and with our experience, we know exactly what works and what doesn't work. That's why, every kite you ride from Reedin, you're going to feel like, yes, I'm comfortable on it. It's going to be an easy kite to use. It's going to be, it's going to push yourself to the next level. And I think that's the main difference what we do at Reedin.
That's so cool. And I think another really interesting feature that I want to pick your brains on is the involvement of Ralf and Brainchild, because obviously the first SuperModel came in, but then every other launch that you guys had, the Whisper, the HyperModel, the MasterModel, has had Ralf's influence and the Brainchild technology with the ProWeld and the digital printing. So how has it been working with Ralf, and what does Brainchild actually bring for Reedin as a brand?
Well, I think, for me as a owner of a company, but more me as a rider, first of all, working with Damien, to me, he's the Einstein of kite design. That guy is always like 5 steps ahead. Sometimes he calls me up. He's like, dude, I was thinking of this and this and this. I'm like, it takes me 1 or 2 days to actually figure out what he means. And then eventually I'm like, dude, that's really clever. And then a couple of years ago, Ralf, we started working with Ralf and with Brainchild, and it's in my opinion, two of the best kite designers sharing their knowledge with the goal making the best kite you ever flown. And I think, with launching the HyperModel, the MasterModel, and the WhisperModel, all made at Brainchild, it's just, it just made our kites so much better. The way Brainchild works, the technology they're using, they're making the kite a lot more efficient, a lot lighter, a lot more easy to fly. And I think it's a huge step in kite design what Brainchild has done. And it's great working together with Brainchild. I think, we're still at the beginning. I think we already proved that, what Brainchild is capable of and what we are capable of at Reedin and doing that collaboration. And I'm just looking forward to what's next. There's behind the scenes, we're working on so many cool little projects that, might be coming out only in a few years. And that's the thing that gets me and everybody in the team excited. That's the beauty of running a kite company. There's never a dull moment. There's always a new material, a new design, new bridle setup, and having, working with all these people within the company that are so flipping clever is just, it's just living the dream.
I mean, certainly sounds like it. And actually, that's a really cool follow-up for my next question, which is, like, you've launched all these products. You have now not just a lineup of kites. You have boards, you have straps, a bar. You have a whole quiver of equipment that people can buy and be stoked on. But what does the future look like for Reedin? Where do you guys see the company going in the future years? And how do you hope to continue innovating and bringing awesome gear for consumers?
Well, I just, if I do something, I want to do it good, and we're not in a rush. We do it step by step. I rather do it step by step than rushing things. So I think we started Reedin 6 years ago. If I look back, we grew way beyond I could have ever dreamed of where we would grow to. But now I'm getting really excited because we know what we're doing. I think we positioned ourselves in a really good spot, and our goal is to have all these Reedin kites up in the air and have people experience what we experience from kiting. And, it brought me a lot in life. It brought me a lot of joy. And now being able to, put some of that joy in products that people can buy is pretty unique. And that's something I want to keep spreading. I want to grow the company. We're already growing like crazy. Last year we had a banger year. This year it looks like we're gonna do a banger year again, and we're expanding the team. And there's You're not going to get rid of us, that's for sure.
You've heard it here first. Kevin is going full throttle with Reedin. We've actually had the chance to try some of stuff that has not been released yet, which is super exciting. And we can't wait to continue seeing how him, Damien, and obviously Ralf continue to innovate in the kite world. We have to thank Kevin for giving him his time today. As always, make sure to subscribe to Mac Kite and to follow Kevin Langeree and the Brazilian Bros on Instagram for some more awesome kite surfing content coming your way. See you soon.
Dude, let's hit the water now.
Let's go.
Later.